Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Square Read Podcast, everybody. Today, our special guest is Bobby D and the Big Texan. We have a few people have noticed, but for the past 3 weeks, we haven't uploaded, and that's for various different reasons. Largest ones is there was the CAC in Vegas, and Bobby and Jim will talk about that. I forgot about it, so I didn't go.
Well, there's always next year, sir. You can definitely go next year.
I forgot it was there till I text you and go, "Hey, we're in Vegas." I go, "Oh, yeah, forgot."
Yeah, the CAC is like a great organization. It's there for any wrestlers that are in need of money or financial assistance, whether it be medical or if they have a problem going on in their life and they can't afford their house payment or power bill, or a lot of it's medical, unfortunately, just because no wrestlers have got medical insurance, unless you can cross over to movies, because people like The Rock or even Terry Funk, God rest his soul. If you acted in a movie and you got so many lines and so many hours of being an actor, then you get that SAG card, and then you get free health insurance for life. So that's kind of nice, but you got to be one of those main guys that cross over like that.
So we just
Yeah.
need to do a local movie with you and Bobby, get you some, 16, 18 lines in the movie, and you both have health care for life.
Oh, I would have
Well,
to be a star. I can't just do 16 lines.
I
I
do
don't know
see
if a
you have your
local
belt
movie will
back
cut
though.
it. It's got to be basically everyone's got to be in the union and to get that SAG card to be able to do it. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, so yeah, the trip.
Well, real quick, since you mentioned it there, right before the trip, I did win that title back. My Central
There you
States
go.
title. Got it at the Little Devil show. Won it in the cage match versus Sean Vincent. Had to bust him open a little bit and jump off the top of it to get it, but it's back home.
Congratulations on that. Yes.
Yeah, congrats.
Definitely
Pitching healed nicely.
a
Yeah,
crazy
it's
night, because
a little mark, but
I'm sure we can send Nate some pictures, but man, you and Vincent were all busted open. And there was like someone sent a picture of the mat, and the mat just had a huge circle, like a big puddle of blood
I'd
in
say it
there.
was a puddle.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good puddle. I mean, when you start seeing black in the center, that's a little more than just a tiny bit of blood.
But it was definitely, I mean, that was a crazy night, because that night I got burnt by Stephen E. When I was going against Peyton Ayers. Which was kind of the cool thing about it, if there was a cool thing about it. Like, all the people there rallied behind me and like ran them off.
Yeah.
They had to run for their lives, because the kids, some of the parents, I guess that was the first time they ever seen something like that happen in a ring, and a lot of people were pissed about it, which is great. If only they could have stumbled and fell, and I would have liked to seen the audience just like beat the
Just
tar
swarm
out.
on
That would have been even better.
How did Steven not trip over his beard?
He throws it over his shoulder.
He's like old man time with that beard just hanging down there.
But yeah, the CACs, we'll just get back to that. So it's in Vegas. It happens once a year. It's 3 days. They hand out awards 2 of the nights. I want to say it's like 10 awards. I might be wrong on that. And I know they announced a couple new awards that they're going to have in the future.
Yep.
But they split it within 2 nights. So the first night you get down there, it's pretty much, it's open to you to do whatever you want. Shit, it's Vegas. And the hotel we stay at is at the very beginning of the strip. so you can roam around the strip all day and all night.
And the strip is cool in itself. Just all the live bands they always have going, the street performers, lots of drinks flowing.
But it's the Plaza Hotel has been it's where it's been the last 2 years, and
Okay,
that
now, Jim, I have to ask you because last year you went to a flamboyantly gay Michael Jackson-esque wrestling match. You see your boy again this time?
I didn't see Michael Jackson, but I did see the other boy.
The whole wrestling show was not flamboyantly gay, just the one guy.
And he was
I've got
back.
too many rumors going there.
No, I have that video on our shorts page.
Well, you can grab another one because I have some clips of this year's version of it too.
He did lose his corset, though. He did at least stop wearing that.
Well, it is big as those buffets.
Well, I tell you, it's kind of a crazy place. But so the first night we get down there, they open up the place. The nostalgia room, is open the very first day, so you can go in there, and some of the legends are in there. Starting off on day one, so you had Damien 666 was there. Ron Simmons was there for a little bit. Um, let's see here. Bob Orton was there for a little bit the first day. So you can see some interactions with your legends. But also there's some people there that's selling things like there was a guy that well, actually he was a ring announcer for MWL. He was selling some posters and um, cards and figurines, like loose figurines that was previously owned. Trying to think, there was a guy, and I think Bobby bought him. There's a guy who created kind of like I hate to, yeah, Pokemon, or what's that other card game that you can play? Um,
Okay. I
no,
don't know.
it's the card games that the kids play nowadays.
I don't
They
know. I
play,
touch grass. I don't know.
so this
Bobby,
guy
what's that
created a
card
game.
game?
I say
This
we
guy,
talked about Magic the Gathering and
Magic.
Oh, right.
That's what I was trying to think of. So the guy created a game based off of wrestling, and I think, yep. So there's that.
what's a grand?
Yeah, so it's got trading cards in it basically, and it's got so many moves that you can, I want to say, roll the dice and you can get off the move or not. So that's kind of cool.
Each wrestler has their own move sets and everything, and whether you're doing a 1, 2, or 3 offense, and they got all kinds of wrestlers in there. But they got
And
expansion. It's pretty cool thing.
and fans of Bobby D and the Big Texan, if you want to see us play that game here live, send us a comment and let us know.
Bobby, does that say the name of the maker?
It is Phil Singer's Games. Wrestling, Legends of Wrestling card and dice.
Nice little, plug for him. And what's really cool is me and Bobby actually, while we were there, we signed a waiver to actually have them make us a card in the game. So he does expansion packs, of newer wrestlers, and then he does like independent wrestlers as well. And we're gonna be on the independent side of it. So when we might be playing one of those games, we might be playing as ourselves. So that'd be kind of cool.
So I need a
Uh,
Mean Gene card then.
It might be in his pack right there that he's got. But
And while they were there, they did a tournament. And we got to throw out the plug that our own ace cowboy Bob Orton won the tournament.
it's a scrimmage tournament. Scrimmage was played in the locker rooms of all the
That was
older.
scrimmage, but I'm saying the cowboy Bob Orton card was used in one in this as well.
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of like a double.
Yeah, so that's that was pretty cool. I totally forgot about that. So they won. The guy who won that tournament with those cards won by playing Bob Orton Jr. Um,
And the word
and
you
when
were
I
looking
was
for was cribbage.
cribbage. Okay, what did I say? Scrimmage?
Yeah, I believe you said scrimmage.
No, that's fine. So back in the day, all the wrestlers would sit in the locker room because they would have to be there at like noon or 1. And of course, the show didn't start until 7. Sometimes 6 if you're like a curtain jerker. So they would be playing cribbage to pass the time. And if you go back and listen to some podcasts or YouTube videos, Andre the Giant was like the master of that game. And believe it or not, since Andre used to date Bob Orton Jr.'s sister, Bob used to play with him all the time as well. And you can clearly say that it.
Over the top onto their cards.
I don't know, but evidently it must have rubbed off on Bob because Bob won that tournament that week as well. So it was
No wonder he only
double winner
stayed
for
one
Bob.
day. He took his money and ran.
Let's see here. Yeah, the first night, me and Bobby and we ran into Herb, ran into our favorite legend Haku, and basically Haku just hung with us, or we hung with Haku the whole week. However you want to look at it. I want to say Haku hung with us, but I say the first night we didn't really do much. We just, I guess we just mingled with everyone because it was a free for all basically. So you run it, you go down into the elevator, you go to the first floor where all the casino actually is, and you just walk those aisles, and you end up running to people that you know or legends, and then
Yeah, like that first night, I was walking with Joey Vanetti, and JBL just walks by, nobody even notices him. It's like, how many people do you think, like famous people, do you think everybody walks by doesn't even realize it?
I mean, Rob Van Dam. Our last night there, Rob Van Dam was in front of the hotel. There was like a carousel. It's a fake carousel, no horses or anything like that, but it was a circle bar basically, and Rob Van Dam was just
Chilling there?
on a stool right there in the bar in front of the hotel, just drinking. So I mean, it's kind of crazy. I guess they see so many celebrities in Vegas or they just don't recognize the celebrities, and they get left alone a lot. One of the trips down the strip, I was able to see Brian Knobs of the Nasty Boys on his little scooter, little moped looking thing going up and down the street. So that was kind of funny to see. And
Ran into the Amazing Walden.
what?
The Amazing Walden was on the trip too. You know,
Oh,
D's nuts. Ha! Got him.
sure.
He was up there. He was taking pictures.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good way to make money. A lot. I mean, because you go down the strip and there's like circles, like every so many feet, and the street performers pay to be in that circle. And I don't know how many hours they got to be in that circle, but and honestly, I can see how some of them make their money. But there's a lot of people that make like stuff out of flowers and stuff out of like I don't know, some sort of hay material, and I never see them selling any of them. But there's a lot of people that were there making the stuff.
Well, I actually read about it last year. They don't pay to rent the circle. They put their name in a drawing for it, and if they just get it, they get it for 2 or 3 hours, whatever it is.
Oh,
But you
Yeah.
don't know until like that day before if you're going to get it or not.
That
I
kind of
guess
makes it
I could.
harder. You would think they would just better pay. Um, but anyway, so yeah, the first night we didn't do a whole lot, just mainly we do a little trick where I brought a backpack with us, and because there's bars all lined up and down the strip, and they all want like 10, $15, even sometimes 30 some odd dollars for a drink. I ain't gonna say names, but someone paid that much for a drink.
It had a
Um,
triple shot in it.
Can't be
not
anybody in our podcast, huh?
but what we did was for the main part, what we did was just bought like an 18 pack and shoved it in my book bag, and then just grab one out of there as needed. It's definitely a lot cheaper than going to the bars. But yeah, so the first night wasn't um, you know crazy or anything. It was just basically just getting used to everything again, making sure we know where all the rooms were and where we had to be the next couple of days. I think, yeah, it started rolling on the second day because the second day is when they were doing I hate to use the word seminars, but that's what they call them. But it's basically just um, like the second day, I think it was about Canada, the wrestling scene up north, and so they had like I don't know, it was probably a good 6 or 7 people talking uh, about all the places up north, like Stampede Wrestling, the Hearts, and then some other promotions. Um, they had a couple wrestlers, a couple promoters. I think one was a ref. Um, but so it's kind of cool listening and finding out the difference, between the Canadian wrestling and down south in the states on
Yeah,
different
because
things
here
that they
you
do.
crush somebody with a lariat and you taunt them. Up there, you crush them. They go, "Oh, sorry."
Well, I mean, it's been cool. I think it lasted for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Um, but it was definitely neat because last year it was about Memphis, and what was neat about last year, well, not neat. What was good about last year, it was they had Jerry the King Lawler, they had Jerry Jarrett, and right after the CACs last year, Jerry Jarrett passed away. So it was good that he was able to talk about his territory since he was the promoter and his mom was the promoter before him. So it was good to get everything out about Memphis. And then this year, I think it was Canada, and then it was also Texas. Texas came the third day, but the other the other seminar was about
Social
social
media.
media, social media presence, um, which is very interesting. The person actually had a packet that they handed out to everyone, and then you had to kind of
That's
follow
it right there.
along. And
In that little bin up there. There's my packet right there.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
unopened.
It really is. It,
uh,
it had a lot of good information, and I have that packed up there because I helped run the social media pages a little bit. So I was going to pass it out because there was a lot of good tips given out.
yeah, and the lady that was running that one is actually the person that runs the social media for Booker T's wrestling group. Um, so he's got a training center down in Texas, and then also a promotion that they actually wrestle out of, and she does the social media for him, besides her own stuff. So it's kind of cool to get the little tips and tricks. Um, and it was even simple stuff like if you're recording on your phone, if you're recording shorts for YouTube, you want to have it vertical. But if you're going to create a video, you want to have it horizontal. And just, just simple things like that too. A lot
Which
of that,
platforms look best overall? Like should list at multiple.
Yeah, and then there's a couple websites that she put down in that packet that you can go and visit that will help with editing and different things that you can insert into your videos from those websites. So I'll pass that along to you, Nate, too, because I got a copy of it as well. But it was definitely cool. We were a little late to that one. That was actually the first one. The Canadian one was the second seminar. So the first one, me and Bobby were going to be respectful. We were going to go straight there and catch it on time, except for we ran into Haku. And Haku said that he wasn't going to go to it. He wanted some breakfast. So he wanted company. So
I
when
say,
a
when a woman
legend,
asks you to go to breakfast, you don't say no.
right. So we walked, it was just a block away. It's another hotel and casino, but they're known for their buffet. Um, so yeah, like Bobby says, if a legend asks you to go to breakfast with them, you go to breakfast with them. So we went, had a great time. He was loving our stories from our locker room because he had a lot of questions for us. And then same thing, we spoke about his day, and it was just it, wa- I would say we probably had a better time with Haku than we did rushing and going into this. Even though social media is a must. I mean, we're social media right now, being on this podcast. But when you have um, the availability to go to breakfast with a legend, you do that.
I
You
say, I
know,
would gladly make the same choice again.
right?
Like I said, lots of great information to where I'm even taking it over to the little devils to help them out. But I would gladly make the same choice again.
Yeah. So we actually
No
snuck
regret.
into that seminar, and we weren't too late. We were probably like 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes late into that one. Um, but great information, and I think you can actually hire her, and she'll go around to different companies and do the same presentation or modify it to whatever the company is that's bringing her in. So
And
very
that's what she
cool.
said, like her full-time job is like a social media PR kind of person.
Yep.
I do not envy that job because I absolutely abhor all of our social media.
Um, so after the seminars, um, the legends went into what did I call it? The memorabilia room, or I forgot the name of it already. But so you were able to socialize with them, and if they're like Medusa was there and she was selling her book, some other people were there selling things, and even the
Nostalgia,
CAC, huh?
nostalgia room.
Nostalgia room, yes. So even the CAC was
Better than what I can call it.
they always give this belt away, and of course you have it's like a 50-50 raffle, but it's a custom made belt, and it's got all the legends that's going into their respective Hall of Fame parts. They got their name and what they went in for on a plate, and it's got the whole belt covered with it. And you have a chance to win that. So we always throw in a few bucks and try to win it. We haven't yet, but maybe one year.
I
Um,
didn't win that, but I did win lifetime membership
there you go. Yeah. So uh,
Lifetime to what? The
to the
CAC?
Cauliflower Alley Club.
Oh,
I'm a now
nice.
life member.
yeah. So I mean, it's very cheap to be a member. I mean, it did go up to $35. It was normally 25 for the last few years, but everything goes up. It never really goes down. So they went up to $35 for a year, or $400.
I say
Um,
it's now $400 for a lifetime.
yeah, $400 for a lifetime membership.
I got
And
it.
that was yeah, and yeah. So Bobby got a very good discount on his.
At a silent auction, mine wasn't a raffle.
Yeah, so they had
Well,
different
that's
things that
more
you could.
money for the buffet and for beer. I
That's
mean,
right.
But they also like have everyone sign like WWF or WWE does, where they have if you go to a pay-per-view, the first 3 or 5 rows, they have the folding chair that's got the pay-per-view picture on it. They have kind of like the same thing, but it's the CAC related, and everyone signs that, and then they either do a silent auction for that or a raffle for those. This year it was a silent auction for those. I think last year they raffled them, but they have a whole bunch of different things. Someone had brought a bunch of books that they gave away, some figurines that was in the raffle. Last year I won the turnbuckle pad that had the Rock and Roll Express's autograph. Basically, everyone from like the Memphis area signed this pad, and I have it in my display case. So it's kind of cool. But the second night they have a dinner. It's like what do they call it?
It's Nick Bockwinkel Baloney Blowout.
Yeah, Nick Bockwinkel Baloney Blowout. Um, Basically, it's
And
just
I
a
did not
cold
see any
cut.
bologna on that menu, though. It
What?
was all lunch meats and sandwiches, but I did not see any bologna. Saw hams and
No
turkey.
baloney.
And that's fine. um, so basically, it was just a cold cut, uh, dinner, which was great because they had desserts and everything else with it. Um,
They had chips.
Chips. So we got to tell you this story
Nachos.
about chips. So they had, the small little bags that you throw in someone's lunch, bags of chips, and
He sits down with his.
Joey Vanetti. We're all sitting at this table. So this table had me, Gary Jackson, Bobby, Joey Vanetti, Herb, his son Jason, his wife, and then Herb's daughter.
Super fan Lonnie showed up.
Yes, Lonnie was there as well. And everyone, when you went through the line, yeah, at the end of the line, there was the chips that you can pick up and take to your table, and you can start eating and everything. And Joey didn't grab a bag of chips when he went through the line, and he was sitting next to Gary Jackson. So I don't know what he was thinking, but he picked up Gary Jackson's bag of chips, opening them up, and start eating them. And Gary is like, "What the hell? You're that close with Brandon, and you think everything is yours, and then you're the golden boy where you can just open up my bag of chips and start eating them." And so it was pretty funny. And then so Joey got up and went and got another bag to give to Gary, and Gary like, "I don't want them," So, but
Well, while
when
Joey
Joey
was
got
sitting
up,
there, everybody, including her, put their bag of chips on Joey's plate as like a tribute for her.
Well, he is a top guy.
right, and that's what I figured. A little bit of Brandon rubbed off on him, so he thinks he can just do what he wants.
You're gonna have to get him to split those two up for a little bit.
But during the course of the dinner, that's when they started handing out some of their awards. Um, there was one, I actually got the pamphlet here. So the on the first night, I know they gave Ron Simmons his award, and he got the Lou Thez Award. Now, Ron Simmons, I don't know if you know much about him, Nate, but he was the first African American who got a world championship because he was the NWA/WCW World Heavyweight Champion, and he beat Van Vader for that. But he was a football, college football player, and he's been in that Hall of Fame. Um, but
I didn't realize how great at football he was until JBL was doing his intro.
oh, you didn't realize how good he
I
was?
figured he was good, but I didn't know he was like elite.
I mean, yeah, he was. They retired his number at the college that he played for. They put him in their Hall of Fame, and not just that school's Hall of Fame; it was the college Hall of Fame. So yeah, he was a big guy into that.
So why
But yeah, so
did Did he say why he went the wrestling route instead of the NFL route?
I didn't ever hear that. I would just assume to follow his passion.
And there, back in the day, there was a lot of a lot of football players that crossed over. Um, but most of the time they got hurt at football, and so they crossed over to wrestling, not knowing that you get hurt just as easily in wrestling. But at least there ain't 12 other people trying to, smash you down. Hopefully it's a one-on-one or a tag team match that's going on that gets you. But yeah, so Ron Simmons was inducted. Like I said, the Luthez Award. I mean, Luthez is the top dog when it comes to wrestling. He was the very first in NWA um, uh, heavyweight champion, and he's held that belt for so many times. Um, yeah, and so that's just cool that he got that. Um, Rhea Von Slasher. Now she was actually one of the ladies that was from the Canada territory system. And she got the 2023 Independent Wrestling Honoree Award. And it was kind of cool hearing her story because we heard her story in the seminar, and then, of course, when she was awarded, they were able to talk about themselves. And she was one of the first ladies up north to be a wrestler, and she started at like 14 or something like that. So being that young in a man sport, which back in the day was kind of shady, they weren't the best towards females, uh, you know. And she said something crazy like when she first started, there was another lady that she wrestled, and she only wrestled that same person for like the first 3 years because there wasn't that many female wrestlers.
Well, she said she wrestled a lot of guys during that time.
Yeah, because there was only that one, or maybe there was two. Um, a lot of the promotions that she worked for ended up booking her against guys, just because they liked her wrestling skills, and that was the only way to use her because there was no other females that she can fight. But very badass chick. So that was kind of cool hearing her story and hearing, about the whole territory system with her. Let's see here. Damien was the second night. Joe Malenko. He was the men's wrestling honoree. You don't hear a lot about Joe Malenko. You hear a lot about his brother Dean, but they were trained by their father, and they wrestled everywhere, Japan, all over the U.S. And they were, tag team champions in a few places. But you only hear about Dean because he made it to ECW, which made it to WCW, which made it to WWE. And Joe was also a pharmacist on like his day job. So he even cracked a little joke when he was given the award that a lot of wrestlers came to him for certain stuff because he was a pharmacist during his day job. Um, but that whole family, I mean, that's the whole family is like wrestling royalty, the Malenkos. Um, I mean, shoot, Dean was the man of 1,001 holds or something like that.
Yep, but Jericho found. I say he was man of 1,000 holes, but Jericho found the trick that it's really 1,001.
Yeah, and I this is the second time that I ended up running into Joe, because when I took the Iowa trip to that Hall of Fame, he was also beginning. Well, he was actually accepting an award for his father in that trip, so it's kind of cool to see, the whole family going into certain Hall of Fames. Let's see here. Kevin Jeffries, he was the Charlie Smith Referee Award. I think he was handed out the first night too, and he got it for being a referee. There a lot of them, like James Beard in his books, is he's the third man in the ring. You know, a lot of referees don't get the credit that they deserve, because they're the ones that help us out, saying, you know, letting us know the times. Um, Sometimes they let us know if someone's carrying something with them, and you know, even in the beginning of the match when they pat the person down, you know, it's their job to make sure they ain't got nothing on them. You know, so
I say
it's
I can
always
think of. Sorry, no, go ahead.
no, no. I'm just saying that you know, they're kind of like the unsung heroes. Now we've done you know, podcasts about Dave and Earl, and then now, you know, James Beard. So we know just and Nick himself, you know, Nick Rettenhouse was a referee, is a referee. So we know how important the referees are. So it was kind of cool hearing his stories about being a ref back in the day. Um, and just from that, you can tell that he was clearly deserving of it. Mr.
That's what they were.
Outrageous, Al Burke. Oh, go ahead.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I can think of two other awards that were that night. There was Al Burke. I say he was the the movie crossover into movies and television.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy, this guy. You know, he looks
He looked
familiar. You
so
know,
familiar, and then when they showed that clip, it's like that's who it is. I clicked immediately.
yeah, so he's been in so many things. He was in an Eminem video. Uh, yeah, you know, this old white wrestler, you know, being in an Eminem video.
I say
But
we'll put the big one out there so you can put a face to it. I'll send you a picture you can post on here too. But he was in The Wedding Singer. He's the guy that says nobody talks to Billy Idol that way
yeah, on the
on the
Oh,
airplane.
plane at the end.
Yeah,
now I know who you're talking about.
Exactly. That as soon as like they showed that clip, I'm like, that's him.
yeah, and they talked about all the movies and commercials and everything that he's been in. It was so crazy, everything. I was trying to see if they had anything on here, but they just really talking about his wrestling career.
I say they said he's got like 32 or 35 credits or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's kind of crazy. What was Coca Beware the first night too?
He was second night. The other
Second night?
first night was right before Simmons because it made him just say damn to start his speech.
Oh, the Nasty Boys.
Knobs
Uh,
gets on the microphone, and the first thing he yells is, I'm so fucking high.
Drunk and high. He
First
was
thing he
both.
says, yelling across the microphone.
Yeah. You know, so you have Jimmy Hart, you know, great guy, great spokesperson. He was actually one of the hosts. There was like a combination of three hosts.
Well, he
Uh,
inducted him as well.
yeah, so you know, he was talking about, you know, he was pepping them up, you know, giving this good speech on why they deserve it. And then you get Brian Knobs, and the first thing he says is he's so drunk and high. You know, so you have to pull clips off of my YouTube because I put it out there. It's a good 30-minute speech, and it's just back and forth. Sags is his partner, right? Um, you know, so you got Brian Knobs who tells these stories about beating people up or
Getting him
being the
wasted.
ones that promoters send out to the ring to end a match because the match sucks, or you know, even outside of wrestling, getting into trouble. And you know, and he's cussing and mumbling and talking about beer drinking, and then he'll end the story, and Sags will be like, "It's true," and then Brian will go into another story, uh, you know, and everything that he keeps saying at the end of each story, Sags just, "It's true," you know, I can't deny it. It's true, you know. Um, but he was great. He said it. A lot of people, a lot of famous wrestlers don't like to be videotaped because of what it'll be like on the internet. Will they get any heat from it? You know, he was pretty open in saying that he doesn't know how to get on the internet. He doesn't know how to work the internet, so he doesn't care if it makes it to the internet. You know, you know, he talked about, a couple years ago, he almost died. So he is living it up, because he just wants to party until he is dead, I guess. So he's living the good life right now.
More power to him. That wouldn't be my direction to go, but
Well, I mean, he's pretty much, I wouldn't say wheelchair bound, but he uses a scooter to get around. Um, he's not, he doesn't walk around too good on his own, because even from like the table that he was sitting at to get on the stage, they had to help him up and help him in there, up to the stage. So, I say let him have his fun. Fuck it. He almost died once, and he talked about how he went into the hospital, and when he got out of the hospital, he was literally 100 pounds lighter, just from everything that they did to him.
Well, he went into a coma with all that too, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Like I
it's
said, more
definitely
power to him. If he wants it, he can have it.
definitely a
He said
story to check
he
out.
said he is nasty for life.
Yeah, and that's one thing that they weren't known to be a technical wrestling tag team. You called them up when you needed a brawl, a fight to your death or whatever, or just
No
a hardcore match
disqualification.
or something. Um, he talks about how if you wanted a technical match, they could actually do it, but they didn't care to. But there's a lot of classic matches with them and the Steiner brothers, them and Doom, uh, the Four Horsemen going against them, uh, which a lot of people don't realize too that Brian, he was like, I wouldn't say best friends, but he is like really close to Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Um, like they grew up in the business with each other. Hogan has been everywhere. AWA, WWF, WCW, and so have they. They did the AWA territory. They did. Uh, I mean, they've been the WWF or WWE so many times, because they even joked about it that they would stay there until they get kicked out, and then they would move on, and then they would come back around somehow until they
They
got kicked
said
out again.
they had never finished a contract without getting fired or let go. Not a single time.
Well, they earned the nasty boys.
Right.
They're there to party and brawl.
Uh,
Their style reminds me of a Texas tag team. They wore
well,
masks.
yeah, I kind of know who you're talking about.
Yeah, they would get called to finish matches and be bruisers.
Hey, I don't know if these guys were in the first night or the second night, but I'm just going to go over them.
Let's say I think that was it for the first night.
Okay.
And so then the second day, we had the two seminars again.
Yep.
We
So,
had the Families of Wrestling seminar. That was Barbara Goodish, Pam Morrison. I can never remember the other lady's name.
oh,
But I can say, well, I guess I should expand that. Barbara Goodish is Bruiser Brody's widow. Pam is J.J. Dillon's daughter.
yeah. And then the other one was a daughter of a wrestler as well. Man, I know we just became friends on Facebook too, because she popped up. But what was really cool about her story, and I'll give you her name after this broadcast. See if you can put something into it, or maybe flash it on the screen, because her story was so cool. Her father was a heel in the business, and back in the day, heels were actually threatened. They were thrown. Shit was thrown at them. People tried to stab you or shoot you sometimes. Um, and she was never allowed in the locker room of any of the places because one time she was not in the locker room, but she was kind of backstage area, and her father, came out of the locker room real quick and gathered up and said, "We got to go now," because evidently the wrestling match that he was in um, didn't turn out the best for the baby that night, and so everyone was rioting and was trying to find him and chase him down. And she says that she remembers them being in the car and they were surrounded and they were rocking the car and they were trying to bust the windows out and flatten the tires, and other wrestlers had to come out and kind of clear the area so they can leave. But he was also an immigrant, and they didn't have a whole lot of money. And back in the day, heels or bad guys were not allowed to sell any merchandise. That was something for the baby faces to do. So you only got what you got per match. So sometimes it wasn't the best money. Um, and I think it was she had a sister as well. So it was her sister, and her mother. And they didn't live an extravagant, I butchered that word, lifestyle. Um, but all the shit that she talked about her dad, and sometimes you can tell there was a little bit more meaning to everything she was saying. So she didn't want to like go into it, but there was something darker. Could have been. At least it seemed like to me that there could have been something darker she didn't want to reveal. But at the same time, she said that her dad had like a switch, so he can be a heel in the ring, but as soon as he walked through the door, he was daddy. Um, so that was, that's kind of cool because it's kind of how I was back in the day when I was under the hood and being the ass that I was. Um, but just hearing that whole story, and then Barbara with Bruiser Brody, she had a different spin. She didn't go to any of the wrestling matches. Again, not that Bruiser was a heel. I mean, he kind of was, but he got turned into a fan favorite. Um, but he didn't want her to see that side of shit. Um, and she did say that she did go to one show. It was here in St. Louis when Brody went against Ric Flair, and that she was able to watch that one. Um, and then they also talked about when she was giving birth to their son. Brody was here in St. Louis. He was booked that night, but once Sam Mushnick realized that he had a son on the way, he kicked him out and told him to go home, go see your son be born. Um, but even at that, she talked about how their son didn't get to see his father as much. Doesn't have really much memories of him because he was so young when Brody was, murdered. And then you have Pam's side, where her dad, was the manager of the Four Horsemen, like the hottest group in the '80s, and so everyone knew her dad, and he wasn't. I mean, of course, the Horsemen was like a heelish group, but they were also like a popular heelish group, so everyone liked them or loved them.
Yeah,
Um,
you watch all the old videos where people are dressed in their suits, throwing the fours up, and
yeah, so it's different, but it was kind of cool to see each individual, story. I mean, that's where we go and talk to our legends for, is because their individual story. Like Haku, he's from that small island, and then he got shipped over to Japan to be a sumo wrestler, and he lived the lifestyle of a sumo wrestler. And then some wrestlers came over and said, "Hey, you should jump ship and come back with us to the United States and become a pro wrestler." So that whole lifestyle, and they shipped him off um, to Amarillo for the Funks. Um, but when he was, I can't remember if it was in an airport or a restaurant or something. But when he left Japan, the family that he lived with saved up all their money and gave it to him, so he would have money when he came over to the States. But somewhere along the way, I can't remember. He said it was the airport or a restaurant, or he lost all that money. So he had no money, and the Funks, actually took him in and started training him, and then start releasing him to different territories, and then he met up with Harley, and Harley took him aboard and everything. But just that story of where he came from. Uh, That's what we listen for. So that panel, even though it was ladies, giving the details on their life, it was pretty cool to hear.
Well, they have a unique perspective,
Well,
and
yeah.
they would see all the little things that guys wouldn't. Because they hear everything and see everything. So
Oh, yeah. But then the second one was the Texas. So you had James Beard and you had JBL talking about not just the Von Erichs in Texas, but there was a lot of territories. Texas was pretty cut off into different territories because you had the Funk's territory, you had the Von Erich's territory, and then you had the other local ones. And then when not the Funks, when the Von Erich's territory kind of crumbled, you had the Jeff Jarrett's and the Jerry Jarrett's coming over and snagging a part of it. And then the ones that didn't want to stay with the Jarrett's, broke off and had their own run. So I mean, it's kind of cool um, hearing the stories about how Texas was such a hotbed for wrestling as well. And
well, how is Texas now? Is it still that hotbed? Is a territory system like it is here, or is it wide open?
so uh, not that long ago, I would say within the last 2 years, they tried to rebuild. Um, it was one of the Von Erichs, but it was a daughter of the Von Erichs. I want to say her name was Lacey, maybe. Um, but
The one that was on TNA.
yes,
Yeah,
it
that
was
was Lacey.
her. It was a couple other guy wrestlers and Teddy Long. They try to get a system back up and running, but like the booker or the money man, something was happening where the money was disappearing or being embezzled, or so the wrestlers weren't getting paid, and the people that was making the T-shirts and the merchandise wasn't getting paid. And it was the same territory that had Hannibal from Canada. He came down, and Hannibal wrestles under a mask sometimes. Um, and they had this match where Hannibal like carries a spike with him, and he like punctures the spike into people, and gets DQ'd or whatever. But there was a match where the ref pissed him off, and he like jabbed the spike into this ref's head like 30 fucking times, and I mean legit. And he was like knocked unconscious. He was bleeding profusely. I mean, Hannibal had a bunch of stuff going on. Even SICW, you could have clicked on a Hannibal YouTube TV show, and you would be able to see SICW on there. But after this match and some other stuff that creeped up about him, yeah, we pulled the plug. So you could that way we weren't attached to that. Because this match, yes, it got a lot of exposure, but for the wrong reason. Because he almost killed that damn ref. Um,
And I'm assuming with wrestling, as it is with other sports, people seem to forget that just because you're playing a sport doesn't mean the law doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Civil
yeah,
law,
so
definitely.
yeah, so that one I know for fact is not going on. However, there is still some local wrestling organizations going on because James Beard, he talked about one that he's trying to get involved in, or they're like he's an advisor for. At our Fan
Yeah.
Fest, that was that Red River. He was kind of like he was trying to portray Brody. Um, it was Red River something. But he was from Texas, from a different organization.
I say the lady that did the social media stuff. She's a promoter for Booker T in
T's.
Texas.
And then you also have, Cody Rhodes' brother, Dustin. Dustin has his own promotion down in Texas as well. Um, and, you know, I'll have to admit, since I helped train the Ace Academy's students, there's sometimes I pull stuff from Booker T's, or I pull stuff from Dustin, because they're pretty good at putting things out there of different trainings that they do. Um, there's also a group in California that I pull from too. They're pretty cool. But
Okay, soon people will be able to pull from the Ace Academy since we're going to be putting some things out with that.
yeah, I mean, we have some videos in the can. We just haven't put them out there yet. Different interviews with different students. Because we even had interviews with the new ref that we got, Andy. Before he was a graduate from the Ace Academy in the referee role, he was just training, and you know, we train refs just like we train wrestlers as well, except for towards the end we kind of lay off of them, because they got to learn how to bump, because they got to learn how to protect themselves. But then once they learn the basic part of that down, then you got to teach them the rules of the wrestling so they can, catch the guy, or, be able to count to five, or be able to
But
count to three.
which one of you teaches them to be blind?
Right.
That's because they don't have health insurance or vision insurance.
I
That's
got
so true. Um, yeah, so I mean, we got
So
those in the
support
can.
CAC.
Yeah, you have to.
So we'll definitely do a spin-off, or even have a whole episode dealing with just the Ace Academy. So that'd be
All
kind
we're
of cool.
waiting for is 1,000 subscribers, and then we'll start putting out on our "So You Want to Be a Wrestler" Ace Academy, or whatever title you guys all decide you want to call it.
Right, right. That just gave me a flashback of when Rory Fox was talking to us about the Olympia wrestler.
Yeah.
Let's sell
Don't
all of our
kill the
camera
camera, guys.
equipment for Coke.
Except nobody's going to be selling my camera equipment for cocaine, no cocaine.
He never
Or
specified what drug it was for.
I'm pretty sure he hinted around that was Coke.
yeah, a little bit of booger sugar.
But anyway, yeah. So I mean, and just like any city, there's any major state. Well, they're all major states, but any major city in the state, uh, wrestling's been around for decades and hundreds of years. So there's always going to be some sort of form of wrestling in a state. But it was kind of
Wrestling has
cool
been
because
around since 14,000 BC, according to the cave paintings out there in France.
there
It's
you
not
go.
going anywhere.
But JBL talked about his start in wrestling, and that he was trained. I can't remember his trainer, but he never had a match. And he showed up um, at the Von Erichs. I can't remember if this was the switch of the Von Erichs going into global or not. But he showed up, uh, banged on the door. James Beard opened the door, asked him what he wanted. He said that he wanted a job. And it just so happened that their current champion that night, his opponent no-showed, and they knew he was going to no-show. So JBL talked about how they said, who trained you, and he gave him the name, and he goes, well, that guy's a pretty reputable trainer, so we do have a match for you. So his very first match in that promotion was going against their heavyweight champion. And they figured, if he sucked, the champion was gonna beat his ass quickly, 3 or 5 minutes and be done. But if it was good, it was going to last longer. And evidently, he was good.
Now,
So it,
I don't think the story was his first match in that promotion. I think that was his first match ever.
oh yeah, it was his. That's what I said. When he went through his training, he never had a match, and then he showed up at that place on the front door knocking. Um,
Well,
but
how as a trainer, and Bobby, you train too. How do you train somebody and not ever put them in a match? How does that work out? I mean, how can you gauge skill at that point?
You work matches at like just against other rookies. You just don't work one in front of a crowd. So you get
right,
some kind of match time, just not with the roar of the fans, I guess.
and it's totally different because you kind of feed off the crowd. So you can have a match, and I see it all the time where I can put two people together, they have a match, and then we pick it apart. But when you're in front of a live audience, there's no picking apart because it's live. And depending if you're the baby or the heel, you pull from that crowd. So you either get excited with the crowd as they're getting hyped up on your match, or if you just happen to suck, they're gonna let you know that you suck, and then that kind of makes you feel like, damn, why am I here? Because I suck, and so you kind of get the emotion from the crowd. Um, but James Beard, how when he was on here, he talked about him going to Japan a lot, and so he talked about how James. Well, no, there's a guy from Japan there who liked him and brought him over, and I think James Beard is the one that kind of booked him to go over once he was invited. Um, and of course, Bob Orton Jr. was once JBL had first couple matches, um, they realized he was really green and started booking him as a tag match with Bob Orton, so Bob could, continue his training. Because he told this story uh, about this Japanese wrestler was just whooping his ass every fucking night, and he was getting tired of getting his ass whooped. So he was talking to Bob about what he should do. And Bob said, well, if you feel like you're getting your ass whipped, go out and get a steel chair and beat him with the steel chair. Uh, and he did it that night. He was getting his ass handed to him, so he went and grabbed a chair and just wailed on this guy.
He said,
And
just swing it like a bat.
yeah, Bob told him to swing it like a bat, so he did. And he could have went to jail that night because this guy was beat the fuck up with this steel chair.
I
you
said
know,
my favorite story about JBL in Japan was they started teaming Bob and JBL up together, and Bob asked him, "How long have you been wrestling?" And he said 3 weeks. And Bob's like, "No, not how long have you been in Japan? How long have you been wrestling?" He's like, 3 weeks.
but
Well,
so JBL
what
has
was
had.
Bob's reaction to that?
I'm sure he was like shocked the hell. But he's had like a really cool story because after Japan, he was supposed to get a shot with WCW. But like a day before or 2 days prior to that, he actually got a shot with WWE. And Gerald Briscoe told him not to go to WCW, that he would convince the uppers in WWE to hire him. And JBL shook Gerald Briscoe's hand, and said that it was in stone if he shook hands. So he didn't take the offer from WCW, and
I
it was
say,
just
and
a
mind
matter of
you, Briscoe was another Texas guy that he trusted,
no,
that he was coming up with.
no. Briscoe
No?
was an Oklahoma guy.
Well, same general area. They work together a little bit.
And the reason why I pointed that out is because if you ever watch, they got a podcast as well that they do together. And JBL, always talks about Gerald Briscoe being the Indian from Oklahoma, and he goes off of JBL being the redneck from Texas. and they constantly battle each other, and it's pretty funny. They really dog each other, but it's all in fun, I think. Uh, you know, but yeah, so they shook hands, and he became oh man, what was he was part of the new Blackjacks. That's what first started him. Maybe he was John Bradshaw first, but then he became part of the new Blackjacks with Barry Windham.
I say no. He had some kind of weird name like Black Hawk Bradshaw or something weird. I thought
Well,
where
that I
there's
think
like a
that's
bird.
when I think that was when he became uh, the black one of the members of the Blackjacks, because he was doing a cowboy gimmick when he first started there, and then Barry Windham came in and they put them together. Um,
I'm
it,
quiet, people, because this is a part of wrestling history I have no clue about. My
and
screen wasn't frozen. I'm just listening.
what was cool, I think, is the original Blackjacks was Barry Windham's father, one of the original ones. So he was just had like a revised version of his dad's gimmick.
Like,
But then again, he
I've
didn't
heard
stay
that
there too long.
during the Hall of Fame show, the Legends show in St. Louis. I know JBL in the ring told that story, but I wasn't exactly listening all that hard because I was doing other things in the ring. But did JBL get in the WWE with Jared Briscoe? Or did they not take him and then he had to do something else?
No, they took him.
Okay.
Gerald Briscoe was a man of his honor, his word. You shook his hand; it was good as gold. Um, so yeah, and JBL talked about that. That he was unsure of what was going to happen with him because all he did was shake the guy's hand, and there was no contract, nothing in writing. But yeah, Gerald Briscoe turned out to be the guy that you shook his hand. It was as good as Bond. Um, but it's besides the JBL stories. James Beard talked about his time in Japan, his time moving around the Texas territory. Talked a little bit about the Von Erichs movie that's coming out here pretty soon. That he was an advisor for that movie and how he's looking forward to see how it turns out. Which I am too because I loved Kerry Von Erich. I think he had he had the looks. I just wish his WWF run was a lot better. I think he became the Intercontinental Champion, but that he could have been, the world champion. Because
Yeah, but that family was cursed.
well, when he had that run, that's when he was wrestling with half of a foot. And, if he was all there, he probably could have had a much better run. Um, but it was him and he was going against Mr. Perfect a lot. I think Perfect had the title, and then Kerry won it off of him. I mean that Kevin, I got to give Kevin his props too. Wrestling barefoot most of the time, that just takes a lot of balls because when your opponent sees you with no boots, your toes are the first thing he's going to go for. you know.
Now, do we have a release date for that movie yet? Because I know when James was on here, he said as soon as the release date was, he was going to come on back on the
I
program after he watched it to tell his views on it.
see, that's the thing with what's going on with the strikes. The writer strikes, the actors are going on strike to back the writers. Uh, you know, we might not see anything new for quite some time. So I don't know if that was even finished. So if it wasn't finished before the strike happened, you're going to wait for the strike to get over with before we see it. I mean, I do know some movies are being made, and I don't know how they're getting around it. because, and I'm going to say this because I know there's a certain wrestler that I'm kind of friends with who is in the movie business, and I know he just announced that he was going to make another movie. So I know somehow they're getting around the strike.
If
Um,
you self finance the movie and you do it through a non-distribution, if you take it to like the International Film Festival and things like that, then you don't have to be a member of SAG.
ah, okay. I mean, there's always a way around certain things, but I think since this is a Hollywood movie, that they did it through SAG because the guy who plays Carrie is a very well-known actor.
Zac
Um,
Efron.
Zach, yeah. Um, and seeing the
Well,
previews for it, they showed like clips, not really a preview. They just showed clips, pictures of the clips of the movie. And Zac Efron, he's always been like muscular, but very skinny muscular. And now he is like completely transformed his body where he's now jacked.
he's been
Because
eating
he
barley,
plays,
lots of barley.
yeah, well, he plays Kerry Von Erich. So, he definitely had to get jacked to be Kerry because Kerry was the biggest one. You had David who was very tall but skinny. Kevin was shorter but skinny. The other brother who shot himself was the same size as Kevin, short and skinny. Kerry was the only one that was like he had the physique.
Stocking.
Yeah, but
I do know that SAG offers and the Directors Guild offers exemptions from strike if there's like Zach transforming his body. If there's a hardship to the role, then they'll offer an exemption to where they can continue.
well, this hopefully the movie comes out soon because I'm kind of looking forward to it. Um, there hasn't been really any good wrestling movies. The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, I think that was a great wrestling movie.
I think
And
that was the last good one.
I always tell people, even the guys that I train, that back in the day when I first started going to the training, that was what I grew up with in like the locker rooms back in that movie uh, portrayed that like to the T. Unfortunately, you had that one guy that would come and sell you anything you want in the locker room. If it was drugs, or Viagra,
Evidently, evidently,
anything.
he's the pharmacist.
Right, right, right. I mean, that's probably how he made his money besides wrestling. you know. But yeah, that was a good movie. And Bobby, I don't know if you watch it, but there's a program, I think it's on Stars, called
Wrestler
Heels.
Heels. Yeah,
I love that one too. It's a little
it's
bit
a good
more
one.
commercialified, but it like you could tell that there's some reality to the storylines that they're going off of.
Yeah, I haven't watched any of season 2, but season 1 was great.
Uh, well, damn, you're like far behind because this week is the finale for season 2.
That's what I've been waiting on. Now they,
You're
they
gonna
do the
binge
like
it.
them 3 months for $10 or whatever. So I was waiting for it all to premiere and binge watch it.
There you go. Um, but yeah, that's definitely a good show. So anyhow, that was the second seminar on the third day. Now I do have to say that in the middle of that seminar is when I got the phone call. Personally, I had a death in the family that I found out during that seminar, and I had to kind of bow out of the last maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then I was kind of wrecked for a few hours. So Bobby was on his own, not necessarily on his own. He was with all the other wrestlers and stuff and legends that were there. But I did run in back into Bobby for the time for the dinner.
That's
And
why
this dinner,
Gary and I came back with some condolence whiskey.
that is true. Yeah. So we had to. everyone knows I like Gentleman Jack, Jack Daniels. Plug if you guys ever want us to sell your shit. Uh, I will plug that because that is my drink of choice, and which was very nice and very awesome is Gary is old school further than us. We talked about it over this weekend that he's got like 35 plus years in the business. Um, and he's from the old school where you save every dime, you shop for every discount. Um, and for him to go out and buy, especially in Vegas, because I know the alcohol sales are a little higher in Vegas than there is anywhere else. But he brought back a bottle of Gentleman Jack, and all three of us kind of split it and then finished it at the dinner later on that night. And I ain't gonna say later on that night because it was like the dinner was like within a half hour of us starting the bottle. Um,
Because once
but
you go, you're not going to stop. You
right,
got to finish it all.
but the dinner on the third night, that's like the classy one. That's where everyone dresses up, um, and it's steak and shrimp, that type of meal. Where the second night you go up and it's like you make your own stuff, your own sandwiches, grab your own food. This is all served to you. So there's waiters, serving us the food. It just makes it more classy, and everyone's dressed up, and then they save the big awards for the second night. Not that the first night is not big awards, but Mickey James had hers, CM Punk had his. So
Coco
yeah,
Beware had his.
yeah. So Coco Beware, Herb had brought Coco Beware in a few years back, and it turned into like a preacher type of thing. He's very big in religion right now, and like even his speech was like a sermon. And when Herb brought him in, he had all the kids come up to the ring, and he talked to them about how being a big brother to your smaller brothers was a good thing to do, and how to follow the Lord and all that stuff. And a little secret about back in the day, Coco Beware was Gary Jackson was supposed to tag with Coco Beware in the WWF, and because they're about the same height. Uh, they look very similar, so they are going to be a tag team together. But in the last, few days or so, they cut Gary and put Owen Hart in his spot, and Coco Beware tagged with Owen Hart, and that's kind of like the first time we seen Owen Hart. It was right after Owen started with the blue blazer gimmick, but then tagged with Coco and did this. Man, I want to. It's like high energy or high voltage or
I guess high
it,
voltage.
yeah, it was just like a high energy tag team, where because Owen was good at doing all the flips and all that stuff, but he was also a good technical wrestler. Um, but yeah, so Coco Beware, he got his award. He got the men's wrestling honoree. Um, so that was kind of cool, and I think I have a picture of him coming off the stage and seeing Gary, and then him and Gary were shaking hands. So that was kind of cool that there's such a possibility that that would have been Gary could have been up there getting that award too. Um, did we go over Killer Karl Knox?
No.
Nope, that was the father of the girl, though, wasn't it?
No, because remember the guy, his son was the one that accepted the award.
I say her dad had some kind of name like that, though.
Yeah. Um,
The
but
real old school sounding.
Um, yeah, so he was another heel. I actually when I was coming up with different moves for some of the ace wrestlers, I was watching some of Killer Carl Cox. Cox. Because there was some other legend that recommended me to watch him. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, I recommend if you want to see some old school technical wrestling, to look him up. Even though he was a heel, I mean he played it well, and anyone can learn from that as well. But I wish I can remember some of the stories his son told, because the stories was really cool, but nothing's coming across to me right now. Uh, I'm gonna butcher this name, Koji Miyamoto. He took home the James C. Melby Historian honoree. Basically, he wrote a bunch of books about different wrestlers that wrestled in Japan. Because I want to say that he even talked a little about Lou Thesz when he came over. But um, you know, since he was able to write a bunch of stories, a bunch of books about him, they have that own category, and he took that home that night.
I say
Uh,
he's currently writing one, which he's already done two other ones. Antonio Inoki. I
that's right.
say
He
he's
talks about that.
very, very big over there.
Just a quick
Yeah. So,
interlude. How long do you guys want to go on the new update? There is no timer anymore, and
oh,
it's
really?
10:30.
Oh, well, we only got a couple more people, so let's just knock them out.
Finish it up.
Damien
Well, you
six
guys
six
have
six.
to get up in the morning. I don't, so that's why I'm asking.
We'll run through it real quick. Damien 666, Mexican wrestler. Rey Mysterio Jr. Popped in real quick to do his introduction, and he had to stick around because Damien 666 doesn't speak that good of English, so he had to translate. Um,
I didn't realize he said was his uncle used to bring Damien in, so like he grew up with Damien as well.
yeah, yeah. So he said that Damien used to live in their house. He talked about it all the time, how, Ray was 14, 15, 16-year-old hanging out with all these 20 plus something guys who were wrestlers, like Conan and now, Damien, and of course all the Guerreros. Um, Kind of a sad story. He lost his wife recently because, during the beginning of COVID, they both had it. And actually, he went into the hospital, and they thought he was going to die. And then his
They
wife,
thought she was fine.
they thought his wife was fine, but in a matter of like a day or something, it switched where he was getting better, and she went downhill and actually died. Um, but I think his daughter and his son were there. I think those were the two people at the table.
I
Uh,
believe
so
so.
so it's kind of cool that he got a award, and he got the Lucha Libre honorary award. But what's even cooler is that wrestling show that we go to in Vegas. Surprise, he was wrestling in that show. So you got this, you can see him in the NWA. He normally doesn't wrestle. He's like a manager for a Lucha Libre tag team that's in the NWA, but he was actually wrestling that night.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's kind of cool to see this legend who well, the night before he was awarded his award was wrestling. So I mean it was kind of cool. I haven't posted any of the videos of that, so I will post on that. Um, Mickey James, she got the women's wrestling honorary award. And I tell you, Mickey James,
Smoke
uh,
show.
and was lit. She no one knew it, but like the day after was her birthday, so I guess she was kind of pre-gaming. And even through CM Punk's speech, she was interrupting. Yeah, I wouldn't say interrupting, but she was
Vocal.
vocal through the whole speech. And the first thing she said when CM Punk, um, when they invited him up on stage, she goes, "Fuck everybody," because the whole problem that CM Punk was going through. But yeah, so she got the women's award. Very cool person. I've met her so many times now, and every time she's just been a sweetheart. Um, it was funny seeing her in that lit of a stage, though, because every other time I seen her, she, was sober. you know, uh, but
Hey,
so
it's her
yeah,
birthday.
yeah, it was her birthday week. It's funny how some girls, they have to have a birthday week or birthday month, and they celebrate every day of that. So that just leads us to the CM Punk. Um, he got the Iron Mike. I'm gonna butcher his last name. Mazurki Award. Um, and dude, it was awesome. CM Punk was probably the best person there, best person to win this award. We were literally sitting like reach. Yeah, I could have patted him on the back when he won. Um, but this was right after he was suspended. He was had the match in AEW, got into it with what was his name, Jungle Boy. Um, so they got into it, little fisticuffs. This is the second time he got into fisticuffs with someone. So they suspended both of them. So between his suspension, he came down to Vegas.
Well, thank you for staying.
Hell yeah!
I don't want to waste everybody's time. I think they said I had 15. I don't know if I'm going to hit that. I'm very nervous and public speaking. I don't know where to begin. JBL, where should I start?
Back in my day.
I'm a lot of things in this world. Well, first, congratulations to all the other inductees and presenters. You see some very talented individuals here. There are talented individuals in these seats. There are heroes of mine. There are people I have looked up to. There are people I have worked with. And I'm proud to be here. And I'm proud to have shared wrestling rings and roads and cars with a lot of you that are here today. I've been a lot of things in my life. First and foremost, currently, and probably the thing that I'm most proud of is I am April's husband. None of this is about me. This is all going to be about the people that got me here to this moment. Because I think professional wrestling is so interesting. I think a lot of us have quirks and we're so ego-driven. And you gotta believe in yourself so much to make it. You have to sacrifice, you have to survive. But the truth is, none of us really get to where we're going without a village. My wife has helped me tremendously, and she currently inspires me to be a better person, to try to understand myself and other things better, and I love her to death. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. The business is a lot different when I got in it. But the basics and the fundamentals of professional wrestling are the same as they ever was. If it worked in the 1940s, it can work today. You just have to know how to apply it. And the basics of professional wrestling were taught to me by Ace Steel. I started goofing off in a backyard with my friends in 1993. Right? It was just something to do. I liked comic books. I liked stuff that got beaten me up, that got me beaten up in school. I didn't fit in anywhere. And in fact, show of hands, how many here are wrestlers? How many here are taking a bump before? Now, do you remember why you got into business in the first place?
TV!
Because you loved it. You had to love it.
Harley race!
Well, we're going to get to Harley. No, we're going to get to Harley. I got into this business because I loved it, but I also didn't fit in anywhere. I tried out for the football team my freshman year of high school. They told me I had to cut my hair. I said, well, that's not for me. I was more into being the opinionated punk rock kid with a 6-inch livery spike mohawk. I thought that was more important at the time. I tried out for the wrestling team. They said, congratulations, you made it. Man, you gotta fucking cut that hair. And now I walk around and all the NFL players got mohawks. I feel like I might have missed the boat. But I'm glad I did it because I had to outsource and I found wrestling. Moving off in the backyard with my friends. I was the ambitious one. I borrowed some lumber from local businesses, let's just say. And I built myself a wrestling ring that our friends would goof off at. That turned into saving money to buy a ring from somebody in Texas. And I think it wound up being an old UWF ring. And from there, I realized we ran our first show in 1997, and I remember watching the VHS tape that night and thinking, holy shit, we suck. But I had gone off and got a promoter's license because the only thing I knew was punk rock. I knew do it yourself. I know if you wanted to do something, if I wanted to be in a band, go to the pawn shop, maybe borrow an instrument. I didn't know there was wrestling schools. The internet wasn't really a huge thing yet. I met Ace Steel and a guy named Danny Dominion in the bathroom of the Rosemont Horizon at a WWF house show. They gave me a business card, and I was like, what is this, a wrestling school? I didn't know you had to go to school. I had heat on me because I was a backyard wrestler. I showed up and beat the crap out of me. And it's been a love affair ever since. From there, I wrestled every weekend I possibly could. Nothing mattered. Girlfriends, jobs, responsibilities. The only thing that I cared about was getting in a car with whoever I could and driving anywhere. And we were lucky because we were in Chicago. We were very central. I could drive to Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. I could cross over into Canada until I got thrown out the first time. You could go to Minnesota. You could drive down to Kentucky, Indiana. 13, 14, 15-hour drives to Philadelphia. We went everywhere. Now, this is back at the time when you had to write down a resume, put a couple of promos and matches on a VHS tape and send them out. And promoters would call you, and Mickey knows. And you would get booked. And I think the first match that I would say kind of put me on the map was when I got to wrestle two guys, Rey Mysterio Jr. and a man by the name of Eddie Guerrero. And I wish Eddie was here.
Yes.
I wish Ray was here. He appears to have left. That's fine now. I understand Ray. But, there's a lot of people that wish were here. I wish Steve Kern was here. He's not dead. He's just in Florida. That might be worse. Sorry, 90% of the wrestlers in the world live and are from Florida, so I was fortunate enough to meet Eddie Guerrero. I think it was maybe 2001, and man, this guy changed my life. He was so kind and he was sweet. He was going through it. He had just been fired. He was going through a divorce. He was worried about seeing his kids, but all he knew was wrestling. So he was on the road. He was working independent shots. He was getting booked in New Japan. And I remember meeting him for the first time and him looking at me and saying, I don't like three-ways. They don't make any sense to me. If it's okay with you, you and Ray put it together and just call it to me. And I had very limited experience with going out and just kind of winging it. You know, I'm an indie kid. We would sit down and map everything out from A to B. And man, if you got concussed or the ring broke or a riot broke out or something happened, you didn't know how to zig or how to zag. You learn on the fly. But Eddie that night made me realize how garbage I actually was, but made me feel like, man, there's so much room for improvement. And if this guy is willing to step in the ring with me, wearing basketball shorts and Doc Martens, I need to up my game to show him respect. Because none of this is about me. I stand on the shoulders of giants, literally. I would not be able to do any of this if it wasn't for people like Eddie Guerrero, for people like Tracy Smothers. I wish Chris Candido was here. And I am now at the age where, unfortunately, my contemporaries are passing away. Jay Briscoe, Bray Wyatt, two people who should still be with us, two people who I consider to be young still. Terry Funk recently just passed away. I was fortunate to know Terry Funk. Man, Terry Funk lived a life. I think if you would have asked Terry right before he went, are you ready to go? He would have told you he was ready to go 10 years ago. But Bray, Jay Briscoe, I don't think they were ready, so I think it's important to remember them. The first name I ever worked in the wrestling business was Tracy Smothers, and I was scared to death because he came up to me in the locker room and he said, "Oh, hey man, hey, you look good, you swimming, you eat cans of tuna, you lift weights, and you lift the lifts. Oh man, listen man, I see those matches you had with Ace, with Chris Hero, man, all that stuff you do. Oh God, I can't do any of that. I can't remember any of that either, so if it's okay with y'all, is it okay if we just call it out there?" And I acted cool, like, sure. We'll just walk and talk, baby. I was terrified. And when I saw him in the ring, he ran outside, he grabbed the fans' nachos and their cheese, and I knew I was wrestling in a barn in southern Indiana with a 5.5 hour drive ahead of me, no shower. I was like, this son of a bitch is gonna cover me in nacho cheese. We didn't talk about this in the back. This wasn't the plan. And he grabbed me, and he grabbed that nacho cheese, and he said, "Lock the cheese, brother." And a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, "This guy's just talking to me. This is amazing. I mean, I don't have to talk to people before the show. Wow, this solves so many of my problems." That began the part of my career where I would actively hide from my opponents. All of that, independent wrestling, and traversing the United States, and going to Japan, going to Puerto Rico, going to Europe. Back when you had to smuggle merch into Europe and you were terrified because you were just a 19, 20-year-old kid, you're reading the declaration thing, and you're like, if you have more than $10,000, and you're like, oh shit. If I sell too many t-shirts, they're going to get me on the way back. Nobody's ever taught me about any of this stuff. God damn it. I landed a spot in Ring of Honor, and it's the first time I ever met Mickey James, who's the reoccurring. She's like a rabbit's foot. She's not a bad penny, but a good penny. She keeps coming back. I met Mickey James for the first time. Eddie Guerrero was still wrestling there. I learned from a guy named Raven. And I learned, listen, I know a lot of people, they might not like Raven. Here's a little secret too. A lot of people might not like me. But Raven, coupled with the things that Eddie has taught me, and Tracy had taught me, and Ace taught me, and you mix it up with what Raven taught me. Kid, listen, it's not about the moves. The first time I ever wrestled Raven, if I may afford some of your time for this ridiculous story, he got a ridiculous amount of color on one of those Wednesday night TNA pay-per-views, right? And I'm wrestling for Norm Connor's IWC. You were probably there, Joe. I think you were 12. He's got the Crockett era Ric Flair just athletic tape on his head, and he's sitting there, and I've never met him before, and I walk up to him, and I'm like, hello, sir, hi, like, my name's Punk, whatever you want to do. He's like, just tell me a couple things you do, kid. Make a little bit. And as I'm talking to him, he just starts leaking. He hasn't done anything, but he got such great color Wednesday night at the Nashville Fairgrounds. He's leaking. I'm looking at him. you're bleeding. And he goes, ah, shit, there's a match about to go up. Some kid's about to debut. Raven grabs him and goes, ah, sorry kid, we gotta go. And he's just like, start fighting. And we start brawling. And we go through the curtain because he's already bleeding. He's like, we gotta go. So once again, thank you Tracy Smothers, thank you Eddie Guerrero, thank you Ace Steele. You have given me the knowledge to not be afraid of going out and doing something on the fly with a man that I just met and never wrestled before. He's bleeding. I start chopping the shit out of him. And he's going, He starts giving me his shoulder. And I'm like, that's a motherfucker, you know? Stop giving me your shoulder. I'm walking the shit out. A little lesson learned. We get in the back and he goes, kid, come here. Listen, chops are stupid. They hurt and they suck. And don't chop me again. Really good. We didn't talk about it, so, I didn't know. Armed with the new knowledge that I got from Raven and so many others, I continue to wrestle. Tommy Dreamer calls me one day and he says,
The WWE wants to take a look at you.
and I said, shut the fuck up. No, they don't. This is 2004, maybe. He says, no, they really, really do. I was doing dark matches, Kong Brody was booking extra talent, and he said they legitimately want to take a look at me. And I thought, well, this is the chance. WWF to me was never the goal. I looked up to people who went to Japan to wrestle. I thought the idea of going to Japan and being a superstar, like a Bruiser Brody, or a Stan Hansen, or an Eddie Guerrero, and then coming home and nobody knowing who you are, man, I thought that was the coolest idea in the world. That's what I wanted. When I wrestled in Japan, Hashimoto told me, maybe too big cruiserweight, too small heavyweight. My dreams dashed against the rocks, but Tommy called, and I said, Tommy, if they legitimately want to look at me, I said, I'm not a WWE guy. You know, I'm skinny fat. Hunter famously called me that on TV. He wasn't wrong. I wore basketball shorts. I dedicated myself. I told Tommy, I said, give me 6 to 8 months. I'm gonna bust my ass and I'm gonna get into shape. And I'm doing everything I can so when they legitimately take a look at me, they will not be able to say no. And in the line of this, none of this being about me, I want to thank Val Venus. I had a match with him on Sunday Night Heat that got me my job. And I knew it got me my job. And people will tell me that I'm cocky, and I know sometimes I am, but I knew leaving that ring, I said, I almost had abs, JBL, believe it or not. She said something up here yesterday that really resonated with me. You gotta work out hard to look this bad. The same is true for me. So I'm offered a job, and I'm blown away. And I pack up everything I own. In my 2001 Monte Carlo, which is the first thing I ever bought with my own money. I'm gonna jump back in time really quick here. The 2001 Monte Carlo, I don't know if anybody's ever heard this story about Harley Race in my 2001 Monte Carlo. The first time I ever heard Harley Race, he was a special guest referee for a match I had in Wisconsin. And Harley comes up to me before the match and he goes, hey kid, don't do any of that 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 bullshit. I don't get up and down as fast as I used to. And I don't think Harley wanted to count like Ronald Lewis just yet. I think he had too much pride. And I was terrified of Harley Race. This is the toughest man in professional wrestling he's ever seen. Sorry, Haku.
Yeah.
Every time I would get taken over in a headline takeover, Harley would come over and he'd go, what do you say? And he would stick his index and his middle finger straight up both my nostrils. and I was just a young 20-something punk kid looking at the lights going, why is Harley Race doing this to me? And if you've ever met Harley had legit hands of steel, and his fingers were like sausages. So to actually jam his fingers in, it hurt quite a lot. Not as tough as Harley Race. Harley Race liked me for some reason, and I didn't get it. Tracy Smothers liked me for some reason, and I didn't know why. I never fit in anywhere before. Eddie Guerrero loved me, and I never knew why. Later that night at the bar, Harley Race is accepting shots from every single fan. He's getting loaded, but if you know anything about Harley Race, you know this guy can get loaded. His loaded is a different planet than anybody else's loaded, right? But Harley was a little bit older. He wasn't the legendary Harley from the 70s. Sure, he could probably drink harder. I think he might have got to him a little bit. Ace comes up to me and he goes, hey, can you stick around? We'll just take Harley back to the hotel later. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So it's later that night. Harley comes out of the bar, we're walking in the car, and I'm watching Harley. It sounds very disrespectful to say he was waddling, but it had a lot more to do with the state of inebriation than it did with his body type or anything else. Harley waddles out of the bar, and he stops, and he gives me one of these. This is my brand new 2001 Monte Carlo. It's the first thing I ever bought with my own money. He sits shotgun, Ace sits in the back seat. We're driving to the hotel, and I'm looking at Harley, and all of a sudden he goes, and I'm driving my car, and I'm just like, there's no way. He's the hardest man in professional wrestling history. This man can hold his alcohol. Rolls the window down. Turns in a noise I will never forget as long as I live. He says, and spits a mouthful of vomit out the window. And I'm driving, I'm going at a good pace. It immediately blows back all over Ace Field. And I look at the rearview mirror and I'm just like, holy shit. And I look at Harley and he does it again. And he slowly, I don't think Harley had a quick moan in his body. Everything was still. He just slowly turned to the window and he went like a balloon deflated. So I start to pull over. He does it again. But this time, since I'm pulling over, he turns to me. Swallows and grabs my forearm and says, don't pull over. You'll alert the authorities. This continues the entire way to his hotel room. We get to the hotel room. We walk in there, I'm thinking, man, I gotta tuck this motherfucker into bed, you know what I mean? Like, but we get to the elevator, he turns to me, he's covered in puke, and he says, well, my friend, I hope you have it in your heart to forgive me for throwing up in your car. And I said, yeah, man, you're Harley Race. And then he proceeded to give me a big hug. The point of all that is, I literally, it's in the name, I was just a punk rock kid from Chicago. I didn't fit in anywhere. I wasn't supposed to fit in any locker room. Gosh, I remember the first time I was in WWE, and I felt like I fit in. The names on that roster that were regular house show loot guys, JBL, Batista, Shawn Michaels was still on the road. I know because I had to tag with him and take all the bumps. That was my job. And I did it gleefully. Ric Flair was still on the road. life, I'd rather be haunted than texting. I know this is long, guys, but I'm having fun. I hope you are too. I got a job with WWE, and man, it's because I wouldn't be denied. And then when I got there, I feel like I worked so hard that my heroes, the people I looked up to, became my peers and my rivals. Mickey?
Let him know.
I'm driving my Monte Carlo, which is probably still stained with Harley's puke, from Philadelphia. I wrestled an hour in the Philadelphia Armory. Everything I own is in my car. I drive it straight to Chicago. I got a job. I'm finishing up my dates with Ring of Honor. And I'm just a kid. I'm 25, 26. I'm high on life. It's amazing. The sun's coming up. I'm driving on I-90. I'm in Indiana. I see the sign that says "Welcome to Chicago," and my phone rings. And I look, and I know it's a 203 number, so I know it's somebody from WWE. So I answer it, and it's Howard Finkel. And Coco, it warms my heart to know that I got the same phone call you did. Yours just was a couple decades earlier. Howard Finkel's on the phone. And he goes, "Hello, CM Punk." I can't do a Howard Finkel impression. I'm not going to do one. He tells me that I'm booked for Monday Night Raw. Now, I wrestled Saturday night, and I'm like, oh shit, it is like 9 in the morning, Sunday morning. What do I got to do? He says, we're in Cleveland. And I was like, Howard, I just drove all night. Like, if you would have called me 5 hours ago, I would have been in Cleveland. I just would have pulled over. You know, he says, don't worry about it, we'll fly in Monday morning. Great. So I get home, I rest. Monday morning, my first day on the job, I show up to the rental car desk in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's Mickey James. And I go, Mickey, what are you doing here? And she's like, they're calling me up, and I heard, is it me and you? Are we doing something? And I went, I don't know. So we rode together to the building, and we get there, and somebody comes up to us, and they says, you guys are on Sunday Night Heat. Now, for the kids in the audience, that used to be a little show. So me and Mickey get told that we're together, but we're running around. Do you remember Alex, SmackDown writer? Okay, Alex Greenfield. He couldn't tell me shit. He was like, you guys are together. And I went, me and Mickey got together. We're like, great, are we brother and sister? Are we married? Are we together? Are we like Mickey and Mallory from Natural Born Killed? And I just started like, spitballing. And as we're talking, Michael Hayes walks by and goes, CM Punk, I don't get it. First day on the job, and I look at Mickey, and Mickey's been busting her ass in Ohio Valley Wrestling. And I looked at Mickey, and I was just like, oh man, pressure's on. I can't fumble this fucking ball because it's her career. Hunter comes up to the wall and says, you just thankfully reminded me. And he looks at Mickey and he goes, you, I get it. And he looks at me and he goes, you, I get it. He goes, together? Because I don't fucking get it. He walks away. So to set the table, debuting, Mickey's debuting. I'm supposed to be a babyface. I have purple hair.
Yeah.
And we're in Cleveland, and they're going to announce me from Chicago. And I'm just, I got like shitty tattoos, and I'm with the hot girl with the big boobs. And I just remember pulling Mickey aside and going, this isn't going to work. They're gonna boo the shit out of me, and you're gonna take the straight for this one. We came up with a elaborate entrance, and I think we even might have kissed, and that was the kissing that the instant I kissed you in front of Cleveland, they might have started throwing fucking garbage at me. I proceeded to have an okay match, but it wasn't up to snuff, and I remember getting it back, and Arn and Hunter and Sean were just kind of standing in the corner. And it felt like high school because they were all just like kind of pointing. I knew they were talking about me, and I was just like, oh, God, I guess I shit the bed. And then I got sent to Ohio Valley Wrestling, and I figured 6 months tops. You never would have got to meet me, JBL. How sad. But the best thing about being in OVW is I got to work with Danny Davis. And I don't know, as a return in my career, I don't know why Danny liked me. All these old school guys, all these tough guys, I don't know why they put up with me, and I don't know why they liked me. Paul Heyman would allow me to come to the Davis Arena on Tuesday night and help write the television show. Because my thing was, I'm never getting called up. That was my one chance. Back then, with all those names on the roster that I listed, it was just a Shark Tank. You weren't going to get a shot. And I figured that was my one shot. But as long as I was going to be in that house, I was going to learn as much as I could from Danny Davis and Paul Heyman. And Paul spent his time and taught me how to write a television show. He taught me how to time a television show. He taught me how to second out, how to second in for commercial. Danny Davis and Paul let me sit in the control room with them and learn how to edit a television show Wednesday night. This is when I started drinking coffee. I developed insomnia. That is not a joke. That is real life. I figured I had 6 months. I was going to learn as much as I possibly could when I was back on the Indies. I was going to learn as much as I could from Danny Davis and Paul Heyman. And Paul spent his time and taught me how to write a television show. He taught me how to time a television show. He taught me how to second out, how to second in for commercial. Danny Davis and Paul let me sit in the control room with them and learn how to edit a television show Wednesday night. This is when I started drinking coffee. I developed insomnia. That is not a joke. That is real life. I figured I had 6 months. I was going to learn as much as I possibly could when I was back on the Indies. I was going to apply that. I slipped through the cracks. Paul Heyman got me in and got me on television. Somehow with CM Punk, I figured I was going to be an astronaut or a farmer or something. But to me, that meant it's not that Vince didn't care. It's just that he didn't care enough about me or ECW that I was able to slip under the radar as CM Punk. I was CM Punk 15 years old wrestling in the backyard. I had no business being on WWE television with these giants and these legends wrestling as CM Punk, but I did. And JBL, I don't know, they put the title on me. I won Money in the Bank. I was in the right place at the right time. And, you know, this guy who, let's be honest, people tell horror stories about him, okay? He's the only, I remember having a match with Batista and you, and I'm the little guy taking bumps, but I'm supposed to be a babyface and I'm supposed to be the champion. But it was, you know, I'm getting shit kicked out of me, I'm getting powerbombed, you're Larry, you know, like, it was the job, and I remember laying there, and they kind of threw the title on me, this is the main event. It just wasn't working. There's two household name superstars and a new guy who probably didn't deserve the gold at the time. And I was laying there thinking, well, this sucks for me, but like, I mean, I understand the position I'm in. So, you know, I don't know, back to the drawing board. And you marched back to the ring, unannounced, didn't tell anybody you were doing this, didn't tell me, you got in the ring, you picked me up, and I was like, oh, he's just gonna clothesline me again. And you shot me off the ropes and you said, Duck 1 GTS. And I was just like, first guy to do it for me. Thank you. Like every girl, like Harvey Riggs, like Tracy Smothers, like all these other people that I watched on television that I wanted to emulate, this is somebody who I thought never in a million years would like me. For some reason he did. I don't know. I don't know if at some point along the way I gained your respect. I gained Taker's respect. And that is the point of all this, because none of this is about me. This is about the people who came before me. And I miss a lot of them. I miss Eddie. I miss Chris Candido. I miss Tracy Smothers. I miss Harvey Riggs. I miss Terry Funk. But it makes me appreciate the ones that we still have, that I can still text every day. I can still text Jerry Briscoe. I can still text Bret Hart. And I can still see all of you. And if it wasn't for all of you, and I mean that, everybody, because that's the other big thing is, I'm appreciative of every promoter who's ever paid me. of us are anything if it wasn't for the fans. Now, we might be egomaniacs and talk shit about, oh, I'm the best, no, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. But the fact is that the seats are empty. There is no us. Now, I know throughout my career, probably rubbed some people the wrong way. Some people like me, some don't. What I always had was the backing of legends. Teal, your father, who's my hero. Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper's the reason I'm a wrestler today. And I remember the last time I saw him and he told me he was proud of me. So when people tell me that they don't like me or the internet's mad at me, I just kind of chuckle because Roddy Piper liked me. Dusty Rhodes loved me. I had the respect and the backing of Harley Race before I went to the WWE, and to me, that means more than all the money in the world. But because these legends put their stamp on me before anybody even knew who I was, it gave me the confidence and it gave me the ability to succeed in a place where I don't think I ever fit in. And I've always struggled with a little bit of imposter syndrome. You know, it's a strange business. You're supposed to just talk shit. You're supposed to tell everybody that you're the best. Everybody compares numbers. I drew this number. I made this much money. I won this title. I did this. I did that. Just completely lost my train of thought. It's like one day I just woke up and I was an old timer and I was in the Cauliflower Alley Club. To me now is sharing a locker room and have those kids come up to me and they tell me, and I get emotional when they tell me, man, I saw you sitting cross-legged on a stage in Las Vegas and that brought me back to wrestling. Or I see a kid come up to me and they show me a tattoo that says straight edge and they say, I've never done drugs, smoked, drank because of you. And to me, just like the stamp of legends, that means so much to me. And if there's a reason I'm still doing this, it's that. When people come up to you and they say, you saved my life, it sounds a little far-fetched. But goddamn it, I understand. And I take that responsibility to heart. And that means a lot to me because I was touched through pro wrestling by legends like Roddy Piper and Terry Funk and Harley Race. To know that I inspired even just one kid to do something positive or to get into this business and to respect this business, that means the world to me. So this award means the world to me. I'm sorry for wasting so much of your time. One more Harley Race story because this one's good. I think you're really gonna like this one. Is it okay if I tell this? Yeah. You could have said no. You really do like me. God bless you. Thank you. Yeah. I may have been in Madison Square Garden against this guy. And I was terrified. I was like, he's gonna kill me. This guy hates me. He's gonna make me drink a beer. I don't know what. And right before the match, he walks into the locker room and just looks at me dead in the eye, shakes my hand, and goes, Madison Square Garden, it's on for 20,000 people. Nobody gets to do this. Congratulations. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. And I was just like, oh man, I don't think I can tell anybody that story. He's really kind of a nice guy. It's gonna ruin his whole gimmick. I'm on a show, we're in Eldon, we're in Buzzer McGee's, which is the bar that's directly across from Harley Race's school. You know what I'm talking about. No? Did you go to bed? No, you're still there. Okay, good. So, Harley buys shots for everybody. Now, we just got done working the show, we're sitting there, and the waitress comes by and she puts a shot in front of everybody, and then Here's me. He puts a shot in front of me. And everyone looks at me and I go, and she goes, Harley Race bought those shots, honey, you better drink it. And I said, I don't drink. And she said, Harley Race bought those shots, honey, you better drink it. No, I said, I don't drink. And she said, Harley Race bought those shots, honey. You better. I thought she was going to beat me up. She like got in my face. And I was just like, I don't drink. I don't drink. So now everyone's giving me shit, you know? It's 8th grade all over again. Just drink it. It's only one shot. Just drink it. I'm like, I don't drink. I look over at Harley. Harley's looking at me. He's holding a shot glass. And I'm just like, no, I guess it's been a good run. I'll never work in the business again. I don't drink. And everyone did the shot. Mine's still sitting there. I think Ace probably took the bullet for me and drank it. And I was just sitting there and I felt, I don't know, I felt this, it just felt weird. So I was like, let's just make it weird. And I get up and I go to the bartender and I go, do you guys have milk? And she's like, hang on. She opens the fridge and she goes, who knew? We have milk. And I looked, I counted, and I was like, I need 17 shots of milk. Now, I am not a suicidal person, but I was flirting with it right here. So we get 17 shots of milk, and just like before, a little deja vu, the same waitress plunks down a shot in front of everybody, but this time last is Harley. Plunks a shot of milk right in front of Harley Race, and I'm sitting behind him and I'm looking at him. He does this. Is that milk? And I'm holding the shot glass, and I went, yes, boss. And everyone waits, nobody's touching the shot glass. And Harley Race picks up his shot glass, and he raises it to me. And everyone else follows suit, down to the shot of milk, slams it in front of him, and he didn't beat me up. And I figured at that point, if Harley Race accepted the punk rock kid from Chicago who wore basketball shorts and Doc Martens and had no business knowing or wrestling for Harley Race, that I was going to be okay. Everything else has been gravy since then. I have dreamed bigger and done things 15-year-old me never would have believed. And I've failed huge. But I think I've succeeded even bigger because I've learned from all those failures. And it has been my pleasure and my honor. And if I have made you happy in a wrestling ring, if I have made you mad in a wrestling ring, that's even better.
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
What an amazing night. Amazing stories.
And he said that he felt like Harley respected him after that, you know, because you got this legend who's known for his drinking, you know, taking your shot of milk that you bought him.
And you got it. Even if you don't like CM Punk, you have to give him credit for standing his ground on that one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, you know, so a couple days after this Vegas trip is when, you know, AEW announced that they went ahead and fired him. So, like, between his suspension and between his firing is when he got this award.
So CM, if you're watching this, come on the show and tell us all the dirt. You're not under any obligation anymore.
Well, there's a whole bunch of rumors that he might be going back up to the WWE. You know, because as we speak, tonight's Monday.
I don't see it.
I'm not seeing anything.
My little dog is crying. Give me. There she is.
I hear Bobby's dog. I don't hear your dog.
So I need to cut the toenails on mine.
She was over there by the window. I don't know what she was doing.
I know, but we need to get CM Punk on here before he signs back with WWE because they still hate us.
Well, so here's the thing. I was going to get to that. So today's Monday. Monday Night Raw. It's the last McMahon run Raw is happening tonight. Because as of tomorrow in Denver, and is that how you pronounce it? Denver?
And
Close enough.
Owns,
Yeah.
WWE. And they're thinking that since they were they dissed on CM Punk, but he's got such a name and such a draw that even if he
Mm-hmm.
loses, they know he still puts asses in seats.
Yep.
And so they're thinking that even if like the higher ups in the WWE part don't bring him back, that he might get signed through the UFC side to be brought back to either the wrestling or the UFC's part. Because his last part in the UFC, he was actually an announcer or a play-by-play guy.
Yeah, I think you got into that a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't. It'll be kind of cool to see where he goes, but I'll tell you, hands down, he was he earned my respect. He was so nice, so respectful to everyone. He gave props to everyone who was in part of his training. Val Venus for being the guy who got him the job at the WWE, because it was Val that he had the first match with, and it was either make or break him. If Val Venus, gave the okay, then he was hired. If not, he was going to be sent packing, and so we know how that worked out. He got the job. He gave props to JBL, even though I mean, he gave props to Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio when they were on the outs of the WWE and they were trying to go back up. They had a bunch of matches with CM Punk, and that's actually what put him on the map. And to have even WWE look at him. He gave props to Paul Heyman because Heyman in like Florida Championship Wrestling before it became NXT, Paul Heyman was like the person in charge of that. And he showed CM Punk how to not work a match, but work a match for television, and how to edit a program and everything, and like
Yeah, he
really
was
took
like
him
trying to
behind
learn
the scenes.
everything he could, he said.
Yeah,
Whether it was in the production and the ring, all of it. Announcing.
yeah. So he got, and he gave props, and he said it multiple times through the night that this is not for me. This is for everyone who came before me. And he even talked about how important that you can take a match from the 40s and work that same match today. And if you work it right, you'll get over just as much as a high flying flip flop match. That you can take holds from that era and still work them right into a match today and still get over with the fans.
Well, I
Um,
agree with that 100%. Just from when you guys are wrestling, when they come and talk to me,
yeah,
the new people that are going come and talk to me when you guys are wrestling. And
yeah,
they talk about how SICW is the last place you can get old style wrestling and how they love it and they want to see more of it.
right. And I totally agree with them. It's okay. They have a little mix because we have like a Billy McNeil in our group, and there's some ones that come in like what's his name, Jeff Jeffries,
Yep.
um,
James Jeffries.
James Jeffries. So everyone knows I'm bad with names. Great great guy, and he was able to show some of his skills this past weekend, which we'll get into next Monday's podcast, or next week's podcast if we don't do it on Monday. Because we got a whole show that just happened Saturday that we'll talk about because
We got a few things to unpack there.
some crazy stuff happened on that show.
Yeah,
Uh,
just a few things.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so CM Punk was great. He was the last one to get honored. And he closed the show, and it was pretty cool. Side note, after that, you went anywhere, that's where you seen Rob Van Dam drinking outside of the front of the plaza. You go back into the bar that is visible by everyone, and you got James Beard and you got JBL just drinking right there. Um, you know, uh, if you're a wrestling fan or if you're a wrestler, um, I, I highly recommend catching a CAC Hall of Fame, week, going down to Vegas. You got when you're not talking wrestling or watching wrestling or dealing with wrestling during the day, you got plenty of things to go do or see at night. Um, we went to the Pawn Stars building that's out there, and that was very cool. We had their barbecue because they own a barbecue restaurant um, in the same block. But they got everything. They got the Toy Man from Pawn Stars has his own building, or not his own building, but his own shop that you can go to. Um, uh, Definitely a
Memorabilia
bunch of
shop
stuff.
from the memorabilia expert. He's there.
Yeah, so I mean, plenty of things to do. Um, but
You
it
catch
was
your favorite
definitely
Texan and Belleville Warrior.
yeah, so it was a great week. Um, Except for the tail end about my personal issue. As a matter of fact, after when I got home, I was home for about like an hour, and then dealt with the personal issue for another hour, and then took a 10-hour trip down to Mississippi to give my middle son all of his stuff because he's out of boot camp and he's going to be in Mississippi for about 6 months. And he's got an apartment outside of base, so we, delivered all his stuff. So you get this plane ride back from Vegas, and like 2 hours later, you're on another road trip going down to Mississippi. And then I took two planes to get back here. So it was a very crazy, long week. Uh, but it was a great week. Hands
I'm tired just listening to it.
down.
Well, you'll get more tired when you're there next year.
Right. There you go. Well,
That'll be
as
fun.
Nate pointed out, it's getting pretty late for us. Um, and I don't even know what time we started on this, but basically, this is our CAC Cauliflower Alley Club review. And I'm going to give this year an A plus.
Yep.
You know, yeah. So I'm sure now that we're all back, we're gonna start doing this weekly again. So just saying this out to everyone, please like, subscribe. If you like the little behind the scenes, not only of SICW, but anything that's major happening, or in this case, an award show that was going on for it. Um, you know, Subscribe. It's the only way for us to know that what we're doing is important or at least interesting to other people. you know?
Put some comments. Let us know what you want to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Or who you would like us to talk to or try to get a hold of, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the legends, again, they don't have any life insurance, so any way that they can make money, they're going to charge for. So we got to pick and choose on who we talk to and try to bring in. But I tell you, if you uh, help us get to subscribers by sharing this, by commenting, by liking. More subscribers we get, we can kind of monetize this and get some sort of like bank that we can actually spend and get those names that you would like to hear on a podcast on. So it's kind of hands-on. You help us, we'll try to help you by getting the people you want to hear from on. So.
And if you guys request people that are from WWE, keep in mind, unless they're fired or released from their contract or they flat out leave, we can't have them on. due to two political issues between our organization and theirs.
Well, a lot of the legends too, you got to remember, are under legends contract. So even if you don't see them on TV, their appearances are very highly regulated by the WWE. So just keep that in mind. But
Because we've already had a couple that did agree to do the podcast, but forgot they were under legend contracts and had to decline.
yep. But I forgot what number this podcast is, but
I don't
yeah,
know. We're 3 weeks behind, so it's
right.
We'll get you a
in
number
the,
next week.
yeah, it's
There
in
you
the
go.
30s, 31, 32, 30, somewhere around there.
There you go.
One of those double digits.
Yeah, it'll be in the
All right.
tagline.
Well, I'll cut it then. So from the Squared Ring podcast, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And please share and get other people to subscribe. But other than that, you two guys have a good night. And I'll see you guys next week.
Talk to you
Adios.
later.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Uh,